Okay, so now you should be able also to see me. Hi and welcome everybody. I'm happy we can do this today, and I hope everybody is fine here. Everybody is fine so far, so let's keep it that way. Um, Today we're going to talk about the economy for the common good. The reason, more or less, why we are doing this is because Valeri asked me basically, or we talked about the common good, and then we came up together with the idea maybe we can do a little introductory session into the topic, just to create some common ideas and also to get a first understanding of how the balance sheet and the matrix is working, how we can basically manage sustainability and manage the change. That's what it's basically about, because implementing sustainability measures in a company or an organization or household or an individual means a change. Yeah, and we have to adapt to changes. And this tool, the metrics, and then later on also the balance sheet and the report, which are basically all talking more or less about the same thing, but there are three different levels, so to say, of this tool. We will dip into that a little bit. We will see some case studies too. I will also at the beginning, we start a little bit into the topic of sustainability in general. Why is it important? And yeah, what are the terminologies that we have to know, like the must-have things that we have to at least heard about, like sustainable development goals, for example, or what is corporate social responsibility? Yeah, these terms we will see, and we will also talk about what is the carbon footprint, just a bit in the beginning. We see the global overshoot day, and we have some questions and activities. That's how we're going to start. Then we're going to see this change tool a little bit deeper, the common good metrics and what it is. We see the different levels and what we can use it for. Why do I care about it, basically? Myself, I came into contact with this tool 6-7 years ago, more or less. The older version, it was not 5.0, that was a little older version. Anyways, I was really excited about the economy for the common good because it comprises different ideas. Yeah, you can be, so to say, from the social economy or from the sharing economy, or you can be an NGO or a normal business, a bank, and all of these different uh, institutions and phenomena fit into the balance sheet, and we can have a common language to talk about. And that way, for me, economy started making sense again. Yeah, I was a bit frustrated about economics after my PhD, and I saw too much things that were going bad. And when I found out, and then I started to leaving it behind me and started not caring about so much. And then I came into contact with this movement and with this tool, and I all of a sudden realized how economy and how a business can give us purpose again, and how can it make us feel good about everything. Because I was a very strict ecologist, so to say, and I was getting really frustrated how things are turning, and I was fed up with capitalism. And then I found out about a tool that can allow economic activity, but at the same time give us a meaning and show us a way how we can contribute to a better world. And that is basically my personal story, why I found out about this tool. And then after that, I've been passionate about it a bit and trying to get the idea into projects. And the school that was just founded is also basically circling around the topics of the common good. So we can see that a bit later. So now everybody can participate a little bit. For me personally, I will use my phone now and go on that website, because we can have a little poll now, a little brainstorming. Ideally, we just use one word. As soon as we start writing more than one word, the cloud is going to be like a idea cloud. Gets too messy. Yeah? So just always one word at a time, and that way we can see something that makes maybe sense. So the question that we want to answer right now is we're trying to find what are the biggest challenges for a sustainable world today. Yeah? So if you want to go into that link, I can also, I think it would be possible to copy the link for a moment. I will give you the link in the chat, and in the meantime, you can, or if you want to type it, that's also fine. But anyways, I will give it to you now in the chat. Just a second. So this is the link. You can all enter now into the link. Me, myself, I will also now go there and share the screen. And then we can see the results that are coming up that you are typing in at the same time. So this is basically what we're trying to do now. You can already start typing. In the meantime, I will go to my presenters page, and then we should be able to see your ideas of what are the biggest challenges for sustainability at the moment. So now I think it should be starting on your phones, or whenever you go into the link, you should be able to type in. Yeah, if you see now, I can just type in a response sound now on my phone because it's easier for me now when I type it. I see it at the same time on the screen. I think you should be able to see my my browser now. So what are the biggest challenges? I mean, one that is pretty evident is now you should be seeing climate. I hope you can see this now on the screen. Maybe a quick feedback now in the chat, and then everybody should be able to also put in some ideas what you think are the biggest challenges for sustainability at the moment. And then later on, we will contrast those with what the science and what the evidence are suggesting. I hope you can see the screen and you are able to use your links. I will go again to this. Hope now, please. Aha, industrialization. Thank you for that answer. So apparently it's working for you guys. Let's see what else is coming up. Aha. Stakeholders, companies, understanding. Okay. Okay, let's see what else is coming up. Already good answers we're seeing here. We see climate, stakeholders, companies, industrialization, understanding. Any other ideas? What is the challenge in order to be able to be sustainable? What do we have to do? We need change management. We need to manage the change. How can we do that? Understanding, knowledge, we could maybe put here. Oh, that looks nice. Price. Aha, the price. Okay, if you want to be sustainable, maybe you have to be offering products that are more expensive. I think that is maybe meant by that. Or it's costly to implement certain measures like buying solar panels, for example. Thinking of these kind of things. Let's see, let's give it a little bit of more time. We're a couple of people here, so some haven't answered yet. Okay, the cloud is moving. Demographics, very interesting and very important. It influences in several ways. We will see that later too. Demographics shape also the industrial world in a certain way, especially our customers and also the talents for our companies and organizations. Very, very affected by demographics, and obviously worldwide for being sustainable. Yeah, world demographics are big challenge. Okay. Okay, I would say we go back to the presentation. We have more activities later on, but that way we keep going on a bit. I think that's fine. We have some program before us. Thank you very much for your participation. And we will have more activities later. I'm happy now that we have already tried it once and it's working. So now, why are we talking about sustainability so much? There's many reasons, but also from an economic point of view, and living in a European context, and those close to the European Union, and many of the participants today are from the Ukraine. So, but still, it will affect not only Europe. The Green Deal is a worldwide agenda, and here specifically, we're talking about the the Green Deal of the EU. This is a context that is most close to us, and this will definitely shape the future. I just have that as a beginning, just a little bit. We have we had the slight understanding. So what are the challenges, and where is it going, and what are we talking about actually? And in December 2019, so just a couple of months ago, the EU launched the Green New Deal. Basically, that's a very ambitious program on shaping Europe's future. They have a vision that until 2050, Europe wants to be the leader in sustainability and become a completely climate neutral continent. And for that, they have also established certain mechanisms, and most causing attention was the amount of investment that will go into a green and circular economy. And they will invest $1.6 trillion. This is an American article about our Green Deal, but still, this is a really high measure, and 25% of that budget alone will go into climate action measures. So now we will see a lot of things happening. Just 2 days ago, we'll have that later on slide 2, the Circular Economy Action Plan was announced, and it's quite interesting to see as well what are the key topics and key areas that they will launch certain actions on. And if we know that, we can be innovators, we can be leaders, and we can adapt to change quicker because we know where the train is rolling. Yeah, that's a bit why I'm showing these things, to know that now going towards sustainability will not just only be a price and costly, but be also a competitive advantage. Having knowledge over these topics will also help us be more resilient. We hear these words the last couple of days a lot when we talk about supply chain risk management. This is something key in sustainability management. We'll see in the balance sheet later on that the suppliers are very important, and this is also a top area when we talk about all of this, and we think about circular economy and also what is going on with the crisis right now. We see the supply chain management gets in very high tension. Yeah, that's necessary. Yeah, another thing really important for us to have in mind are the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. Probably most of us have already heard about them, but maybe not so extensively. And we're not going to go into detail here either. But as I mentioned beforehand, we have to see some certain terminologies to know what we're talking about, and there's also a relationship between the common good metrics and sustainable development goals. That's why I talk about it as a tool, change management tool, because we can also think about this tool, the economy for the common good balance sheet, not just only towards being audited and getting certified. More than that, it's really a management tool and also a tool to understand things better. It doesn't only have to be applied on the management level. Most effectively, it's applied also by the employees. That's why the training today is also steered towards that. The whole team or organization can use that tool in many different ways. It can be combined with the Sustainable Development Goals. Those are 17 goals set, as I said, by the United Nations, defining what is sustainability also. So it helps us to understand what are the different facets, so to say, of sustainability. We see number 1, no poverty. Obviously, this belongs to sustainability, but maybe nowadays we associate with sustainability mostly climate change. That's on the agenda, and the poverty doesn't get that same attention really when we look at the media, obviously, but here it is. Number 1, zero hunger, also really important, good health, well-being, education, gender equality, and this goes on. We see this, for example, looks already like circular economy here. We have climate action. And what we see, actually what is going on is that many companies also use now the so-called SDGs for communication, but we shouldn't be misled, because now we see also what they call cherry picking, that now companies use the SDGs and report what they are already doing, so it looks better, but they're not necessarily contributing in the necessary way to a sustainable development as they should. That's just for you also to get a bit more of critical thinking. When you see a company only reporting a few, you might ask, yeah, okay, that could be cherry picking. Why are you not contributing or trying to contribute on all 17, but to be fair, those are around 200 and something indicators, makes it a big challenge too, especially when you have to apply resources and you maybe a small or medium-sized enterprise. It's not that straightforward, but for you, it helps definitely to get a critical thinking. Another very impressive way for showing why sustainability is necessary is talking about the World Overshoot Day, or here it is a country overshoot day. What is that? This is basically based on a methodology showing how many resources are we using of the capacity that the planet has. And the day basically that is indicated in this calculation for each country or for the world shows what is the exact date where we have used up all the resources that could be reproduced in 1 year. So that's the basic assumption behind it, basically. Yeah? So, but it shows us ideally this date should be maybe around December. No, ideally New Year's Eve. Yeah, so we are in a zero balance, or maybe we can say we use them up next year. That would be even better if we increase the capacity. But the reality is something else. And if we look at the developed world, we see that it's pretty early. Let's look where, for example, the United States, it's in March 14th. So they already used it up basically tomorrow, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. We see difference here. Denmark is a bit later, Australia still in March, Sweden 2nd of April, Finland still April. Yeah. So when we look at the charts, then it becomes quite surprising also, or maybe not surprising, but it's still pretty impressive to see when are the resources used up of all those countries. So another terminology that I wanted to mention is corporate social responsibility, because when we look at the common good balance sheet or the metrics, what we are talking about is measuring the impact of a company on society, apart from the monetary, the money impact it has, or the way it creates employment. Away from the economic impact, more towards more, and this goes into the definition of corporate social responsibility. And the European Commission actually, again, they shape the legal environment in new ways. In 2017, the directive on non-financial reporting was issued. Then later on, it became national law in those countries, which means the bigger companies above 500 employees and a certain revenue have to report their corporate social responsibility. It affects only a small portion of all companies, yet this is the first stage. Now we think about the Green Deal. We see some parts of this green vision are already implemented by law. So now we may have to start thinking about it. What can I do actually to measure this change and to improve? This is what we're trying to figure out today more in depth. So corporate social responsibility is the responsibility of companies for the effects on society. In order for companies to fully fulfill their social responsibility, they should be able to fall back on a process with which social, ecological, ethical, human rights, and consumer issues in close cooperation with the stakeholders are achieved. And they have to create values for their shareholders, for their owners, for society as a whole, and also, very important, avoid negative effects. So again, we're not talking about cherry picking. We should avoid bad things like bad labor conditions or polluting the environment. And apart from that, contribute to a better society. This is the definition of the European Commission. Another trend that we see going on at the moment is a rising investment too in sustainable stocks or companies that are talking about sustainability. And with the Green Deal, we saw this is going to increase. They already get lots of funding, then maybe publicly, and the topic is not, it's on the agenda, and it will stay on the agenda for a long time. Even the European Central Bank, for instance, wants to become now a green central bank. Well, this is also already showing all goes green. Yet we need to be able to understand what is greenwashing. Another terminology, hard sometimes to identify, but this would be like a fake greening of an image of a company Yeah, for example, Coca-Cola issues a line with stevia, which is not with sugar, but on a natural plant. Now they have a green thing on the bottle, and now you think, oh, it's an ecological product. Yet, still in a plastic bottle, still a soft drink, and so on and so forth. So this is not really true. So this balance sheet we're going to see later on also as customers and investors and other parts lets us identify who is just talking, and we know that talk is cheap, and who is actually showing their contribution to sustainability, and that's why this balance sheet is so important. Okay. Again, some more arguments. Why is it important before we then dip into the tool to manage this change? Here we see a generation without borders. This study was done on the generation Z, a newer generation, the younger children. Also, for example, Greta Thunberg, that we know from all the Fridays for Future movement. That generation will hit the markets, it will go into the labor markets too, and it will change a lot. Already the previous generation, they call it Generation Y. They ask for why, what is behind everything. They want to know purpose. They want to know what is the meaning behind everything. They also call digital natives. They have different values. So there's lots of studies on this ideas that now the newer generations, they want more authentic companies. They want to have a more direct communication. They are fully connected, digital, super emotional, and they want to see social responsibility. And they boycott companies in a really strict way that have violated sustainable targets, for example. Yeah. So that's why we also have to have that in mind and really start thinking about how can I be authentic to say I'm sustainable or I'm on a transition, honest transition towards sustainability, and how can I communicate that and how can I prove that actually. Another reason why it's important, investors, like we saw, care about it. It's a way for me to signal, and when I allow certification of my company, I also allow screening. So this gives trust, and we know that the markets, and especially digital markets, they need trust and they need reputation building. So these tools help us a lot also to build our reputation. We saw the importance of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We, in many instances, need to show what are we doing to a contribution towards sustainable development. And when we talk about transparency, we also will see this is a way how to show in a transparent way what are you doing. From a societal point of view, we see that it's important for public relations. We have new politics, new policies, new regulations. We saw the one I mentioned earlier, the directive on non-financial reporting. We see now the Green Deal will shape many laws and funding. So it's shaping a new economy. Also public procurement, for example, a town hall wants to buy IT equipment, yeah, or needs to host their website, for instance. They need suppliers, and usually around certain amounts, thresholds, they have to do a tender. And criteria so long were cost benefit criteria to enter the tender and to be selected. But now, seeing that the Green Deal will shape a lot, the green criteria will become important. So if you want to be ahead of the game in tenders, let it be a European project, let it be other tenders for applying for funds, for investors, yeah, showing how green and sustainable you are will now be a plus. Yeah, and now we're talking about business. Business only, we see studies also showing that it's not just a cost, it has become a value factor, increasing value production and adding value in the company. So it increases performance, it can increase benefits, and it has other non-financial benefits, maybe like employee retention rates go up, maybe also the sick leaves go down, and so on and so forth. So this is also highly important. And if you want to have also, let's say, brand influences or your employees acting as brand ambassadors, yeah, highly important in these kind of things, okay? So now we want to start talking about the economy for the common good. But before we dive into this topic, I would just give all of you the possibility to ask questions. So if you have a question so far to what we had on the slides, feel free to write it on the chat, or if you want the microphone also, I can turn it on. Now is, I think, a good moment to see if there's some questions so far. Just if you need the microphone, let me know on the chat, because they're all muted for everybody, but you can also write your questions in the chat. And if you don't have questions, also nice to get a feedback on the chat. Thanks, no questions or so we know that everything is fine. I can continue. Okay, thanks for the feedback. Let's see. We will have more chances for questions along the go, so shouldn't be a problem. If you don't have a question now, maybe later on, it's perfectly fine. Okay. I guess I continue, and if I missed a question, then I can still stop again and go back again. But for the sake of making use of our time, I wanted to show you actually just quickly this website, and for those that are maybe not yet involved, it's interesting also for you to see where you can get more information on the economy for the common good. I hope you can see my browser now. For example, if you want to, even if there's no economy for the common good local movement, there's even a setup plan to set up a local chapter. Well, that could be an interesting thing for the future, to see what could this movement do to your area. But there is already a big movement already. We see that here. You see more information on the movement. You will also see that there's certain amount of people involved already. Then we always see how many companies are already signed up. It's around 2,241 companies and organizations that support the idea, 71 politicians. So the movement is growing. And yeah, we go into more detail about some best practice cases. We see here Christian Felber doing a handstand, turning the world upside down. This is the way how he always presented the common good when he got public speeches to get the attention of everybody. And then he wanted to say, let's turn the economy upside down. And then he started explaining what is the economy for the common good. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do a handstand today. I'm sorry. But yeah, seeing Christian Felber doing it, I think is good enough. Okay, just a quick feedback from everybody. Can you see the slides again? Because I switched from my browser now back again to the slides. Just a quick feedback. Can you see the slides again? Just making sure that when I go through the presentation, that no one is lost. I assume everything is okay. I don't hear any protests, so let me just continue. Okay, now we come to the core of the presentation today. Actually, this is the balance sheet that we have been talking about, and the tool basically that we want to introduce today. But I think it was really important to see first, why do I need this tool, and what is it that we're talking about? What is the context? So we're talking about managing sustainability. We talk about corporate social responsibility. It doesn't have to be only a corporation. It can be organizational responsibility, individual responsibility. There have been developed many different materials for individuals. You can do this exercise also on an individual, on a household, company, community level, and so on. But now we want to talk more from the business perspective. And we see here that it's a matrix where we see certain stakeholder groups: suppliers, owners, equity, financial service, and so on, employees, including co-working, customers and other companies, and social environment. Yeah, those are 5 stakeholder groups basically, where we can and have to fit in our contact groups. Yeah, people and organizations, institutions our company is in contact with. And how is our business affecting those stakeholders? This is what we want to analyze here. And then it's rounded up about values. We saw earlier in the description, corporate social responsibility means values and working around values. What was taken here for the economy for the common good are values taken from the constitutions, and so they try to be values that are general and many people can identify with, especially those in a certain cultural context. Human dignity, and then later on when you go into the manual obviously of this balance sheet, you will see what is defined as human dignity in a supply chain. For example, when I buy coffee, I have to think of the workers on the plantations that are producing and harvesting the coffee, and then human dignity. What does it mean? Having a fair salary, fair working hours, and these kind of things. So solidarity is another topic, social justice, and you can see some topics you have to understand better to know what is the difference between each other. But then environmental sustainability is quite clear. We will later on look into an example, which is D3, the environmental impact of my products. So this is also something we can think of. It's nothing too abstract, so we can identify with. And another area is transparency and co-determination. This is maybe something surprising for someone that is new to the field of corporate social responsibility or sustainability in general. Maybe we considered environmental sustainability, and we think of fair trade, okay, we think of human dignity, but transparency maybe is nothing that comes into my mind at first place. So, but when we think about now these regulations and these tools, transparency is a big issue. Showing actually what you're doing, and also maybe being transparent about salaries that are paid inside of the company to show who earns what, to also be fair and not have salaries maybe for one person that are exorbitantly higher than for someone else. Maybe you want to have them in a just way, and also create some kind of harmony in your company. So this tool also gives you ideas with indicators that you can use then to measure your success on being sustainable. Some fields are more precise, some don't have obligatory indicators, like the one we will look at today has also certain reasons why. But when you look at for example, this area, what could be done from the company to make, for example, my impact on my employees environmentally better, we will see that we can maybe, for example, give them organic food, or we can incentivize using the bicycle to ride to work. And in a normal situation, also using public transport instead of the car. So these could be the measures that also from the company side could be incentivized. We can have certain ideas, and there's now when you want to be certified in the common good metrics, obviously you have to follow certain guidelines and standards. But again, this tool also serves me to understand where I can go and give me first a good understanding all the areas and all the aspects of what we consider to be ethical and sustainable. And maybe until now I only considered being environmentally friendly with my products. Maybe I haven't thought about the supply chain or my employees, or what am I causing to my local environment, or to other companies. How is my behavior towards other companies? When I do marketing, am I aggressive? Am I discrediting my competitors, or am I trying to be different? Many aspects. So this is why today we want to just focus on one. And earlier we mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is another thing you can later on study on your own if you like to. This is the source of the article. There's an article done by some common good people. They now took the Sustainable Development Goals that we saw earlier and showed with which area of the common good balance sheet you could work them with the indicators that have to be reported and the measures that have to be implemented, and then seeing what areas can I cover. So for example, environmental sustainability in the supply chain, we see we would cover the number 6, 7, 12, 13, which is climate action, or life underwater, 14, life on Earth on 15. So we see already, if I want to use it as a tool to manage my business and then to show how my company or my organization is helping to help transition or to steer the movement, so to say, towards sustainability, it's a powerful tool. Because maybe I don't know my strengths and my weaknesses and what I still have to do and what can I actually do. The knowledge gap from I want to do something to knowing what I can do is significant, and there's lots of studies on that. It's called the behavior gap, knowledge behavior gap. People might be super motivated to say, hey, I want to be more sustainable, but maybe don't really know what they can do. So now we have another activity. I think now is a good moment for that. I will ask everybody again to enter the website, and then we can try to name the Sustainable Development Goals again. And then after that, we have another activity where we can rank for ourselves, everybody on their own opinion, and then we later on see the ranking. What are the most important stakeholders for a company? I mean, this is not a question with yes or no, and there's no right answer. It's just for us another activity to see what people think here, and then we can discuss it a bit. Okay, now I ask everybody again to go to this website, and then I will share the screen again to show. This was the old one. Now we should be able to see the new one, and you should be able to put in your answers right now. Sustainable Development Goals, name them. I hope everybody can see the screen now and you are able to poll with us. I will also go back on my phone on the same link, and now we have the new activity here. Okay, I hope everybody's still here and you can see my screen. I just typed in an answer. Everybody's welcome again. You should see the link again. Perfect. In the chat. Zero hunger. Exactly, that was number 2. And it's no cheating to look up the development goals now. If you want to, feel free. But it's just for us another way how to memorize a little bit what we've learned so far. That's why it's a big thing. You will find them with one click on Google, obviously, but good for reflection a bit to see what are the topics. Gender equality, also another thing. Climate action, zero hunger, we said, no poverty. Affordable, let's see. Affordable energy, I think this is what go. That's what I meant earlier. As soon as it's more than one word, the cloud gets a bit messy. But anyways, it will move again, and then later on we will see always a better picture. Okay, another one important, quality education. That's something. I'll read out some, and if whoever wants can type them in. Gender equality have. Clean water and sanitation. Again. affordable and clean energy, we have this here. Decent work and economic growth, still important in that agenda. That's also one of the criticism people give maybe the sustainable development goals. It doesn't really suggest how to change the system to go there. Yeah, it goes with the same measures, and that's also a bit of a problem sometimes, and we don't know how to go there. That's why the balance sheet of the common good is good. It helps us understand how we can go there. Yeah, the goals are just defining where to go, but they don't tell us really how to go there. And that's why it's important to understand the balance sheet, for example, to know how to steer myself, my company towards those goals. Okay, another one, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Let's think, for example, of smart grids, energy grids, yeah, all these kind of things we have to think about. And industry, we think of circular economy. Then we have reduced inequalities. That's not, of course, important too. Yeah, we don't have that here. Equalities. Okay, anything else before I keep reading out the rest? But I can still keep reading. Sustainable cities and communities. That's why we have all these topics of smart cities and discussions around that topic. Then responsible consumption and production. That's something we're going to see today a bit more in detail. Climate action, we have life below water, of course important. Then we have life on Earth. Then we have peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for the goals. Okay, these are the development goals that are set by the UN. So now we should be able to join another activity, which then goes back to the balance sheet a bit more. And now, according to everybody's answers, we will see what is the most important stakeholder. And now everybody is asked to join this. And then I think you just have to click on the one you think is the most important. And then after a while, we see the ranking here. Just feel free now to click on the one that you consider the most important stakeholder for a company or for an organization. Interesting. Okay, curious to see what's the outcome. Don't forget to submit your response. So now we see one ranking. I don't know how many rankings already were met. But we just keep it on for a moment and then we see how the poll is changing. We see it's still changing. People can still rank. So what you have to do is to rank, yeah, according to what is your ranking actually. So you have a bit more than one answer. And according to that, you give your input to this poll. Interestingly for me, that well, now it's number 4, but suppliers are pretty at the end. Let's keep it on for a moment longer, see if the picture changed a little bit, but not surprisingly so far, customers are number 1. Yeah, you also have to say, the customer is king, so probably that's what we always have in mind. When we talk about sustainability, we think of the effect on society, so it makes perfect sense that the second highest answer in this poll, I'm not saying it's representative, but still interesting, is society. Yeah, so we need to think about what is the effect of my actions on society, although this is not clear what is society in this case. Again, the balance sheet defines it pretty much. For each area, we will have certain indicators like we saw already before, and then we can think, okay, if I see now customers are the most important stakeholders, and hey, that could be a way for me to start. No one is expecting to do everything at the same time. I also encourage using the balance sheet for maybe a balanced scorecard. Don't know if you heard about it, but the idea of a balanced scorecard is to have certain indicators on certain areas in your company and define a certain set of indicators with it, or areas, and then you have indicators, and all is linked to vision. So let's say you want to be a green big data company, for example, then that could be the vision. So then you define certain steps on how to fulfill this vision. For example, training your employees, getting your IT equipment green, electricity green, and so on and so on. So this all can then help to the vision of this specific company that wants to be maybe green data, big data, or a cloud provider, whatever you could think of, or other green company when you just use the term green for sustainable. And you don't have to do the whole balance sheet, but then knowing what is in each area important and what the balance sheet defines as the indicator helps us then to define our own individual scorecard, if you want so, to start steering my transition towards a certain goal. Huh? And this again, also in the team, helps because you have the vision, and once you have the vision, you know where to go. Talking about vision, I always have a nice anecdote I saw the other day on social media, on an Instagram account called Founder Magazine. It's a magazine where they have inspirational stories about founders, and there was a picture of a guy sitting at his desk, end of 90s, big glasses, big computer screen, thousands of cables under his desk, sitting there typing, and just one person in a little office, these little maybe co-working office where just one person is, and so on, or it looked like a little garage or whatever. And on the wall there was a painting, like a graffiti on a wall, on a poster, just black writing graffiti, Amazon.com. And okay, if you have a vision and you put it on the wall and you make it plain and you run with it, you can achieve a lot of things. So talking about this balance sheet and the common good metrics helps us maybe now establishing a vision of what could be our company in a sustainable way. Then we look what could be the indicators, and then I go start the processing towards it. Okay, now let's go back to the presentation. Thanks everybody for the contribution. It's an interesting outcome to see. Customer is king. Interestingly, I've chosen a topic from customers, so I'm pretty happy about that, basically. Customers and other companies. Today, I want to give you a little extract of this specific area in the balance sheet, because looking at the whole balance sheet, this is a whole online course, which, by the way, we're also giving in different languages, and you can have it in Spanish, in English, or in German. But this is a long course and can't be done in a short time. Today, we just have a little introduction in this area, impact on the environment of the use and disposal of products and services. It's a specific area within the group of customers. It's not how we treat them. It's not the price we charge. No, it's the use of my product I give to them. And then you might think, oh, that goes into my responsibility. Yeah, maybe. Thinking again about Coca-Cola, the statistics show the biggest pollutions in plastic are companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. So by their decision on choosing plastic bottles instead of, when I was a kid, I remember you had to buy them in glass bottles. There were no plastic bottles when I was a kid, and then they switched to plastic, and this had the impact we've seen. So yes, the usage and disposal or not recycling of my product has an impact on the environment. Of course, now maybe a service provider might ask themselves, okay, what is my product has to do with that? But we see later on, I show you some specific annotations for service provider, but in general, it's good to start thinking about this specific topic, because we can relate to it and think ourselves, what is the impact actually, or the life cycle. That's what we talk about, basically, the life cycle assessment of my product. And here, and this balance sheet talks about consistency, sufficiency, and efficiency. Those are the terminologies. And efficiency, we hear all the time. When we think about the economic principle, it's saying, okay, you minimize your costs by a given output, or you maximize the output by a given cost structure. The min-max principle from economics. This is the efficiency base, basically. And then you can talk about ecological efficiency, resource efficiency, and so on. But it's just the efficiency part. So, and that's a bit of the shortcoming of the current sustainability discussion anyways. They're always talking about efficiency. But who's talking about sufficiency? It also means, when is it sufficient? When is the use enough? Or when is it enough to sell my product? Or what is an adequate consumption of my product? In an extreme example, a provider of gaming solutions, knowing that nowadays gaming has a high potential for addiction, especially for the young children, and then you want to program some extra addictive features into the app or whatever you're doing there. That's an ethical question, and that's something we as a company, or me as a product developer, and then as a manager maybe who's signing off on that project, have to think about. Another way is the marketing. This would be another area of the D, ethical marketing, but I didn't choose that today. Today I wanted to think more about the usage of the product, and then we see here a picture of a Tesla car, and highly celebrated. People enjoy it or they celebrate it so much, but if you think about it, it's still a sports car. It still runs super fast, and it's still a car. And then we also have to think about, is that a really an ethical and sustainable product? So this balance sheet, so to say, or this tool, makes us think and makes us question the things we see. Also, if we think about a life cycle assessment, think about the battery that is in the car. How is it produced? Then we think about maybe about the highly rare minerals that are mined in Africa, and maybe with war zone problems or child labor and many, many other problems associated with just one aspect. The other one is then, okay, it's a fast car, as I mentioned. You can run fast and hit lots of people and be a dangerous thing on the road, for instance. And it's still creating the problem of having too many cars. Just because being electrical doesn't mean that it solves the problem of overpopulated cities and not livable cities because there are too many cars. So an electric car might not solve the problem at all. Then at the next thing, thinking about at this stage, is then, okay, we have the battery, it produces maybe problems in the beginning. After a while, maybe it's fine. But what if this battery has to be changed out? What do we do with this battery? Those batteries are normally highly toxic, and it's not as easy to reuse them. So again, then if we take this circular economy approach, we have to think about what happens with my product at the end, and ideally what other input cycle can I feed with my project at the end. So it's highly important to know what substances we use, or then again, if I'm maybe a service provider and I don't produce products, I still have suppliers and I have infrastructure that I have to manage, and that is my impact many times, and we don't think about that. Then especially when we think of the service provider as a website, this has an impact. And nowadays we see that the data use is one of the highest polluters, and by 2050 the internet is projected to be the dirtiest industry on the planet. So good to start thinking and using these tools to create awareness and to tell me where do I have to go if I want to be more sustainable. And as I mentioned, in this specific indicator, we're looking at the use, recycling, and ultimate disposal of products and services that often result in negative environmental impacts. In order to reduce these impacts to a minimum, products and services should be designed, so it starts with the design process actually, in such a way that they can be integrated into natural cycles to the greatest possible extent. That's the criteria of consistency, and achieve the best possible ratio of utility satisfaction and needs to environmental impact. That's the efficiency level. And that's the third component. If we are to reduce the environmental impact of human society as a whole, however, moderate consumption levels are also essential. And that's the sufficiency. Thinking about a smartphone, for example. Having to buy a new iPhone every time there's a new iPhone is not sufficiency. But this iPhone maybe is produced with the best available technology, the best materials, has the greatest ratio of utility to satisfaction to environmental impact. But do we need it all the time? All the time a new phone? Basically, that's what we have to question here. Or with the car. Now everybody's thinking about, we need electric cars. But again, we're producing new stuff. We're producing new things, and new resources are extracted to create something new that then maybe is better than the older version of it. But again, can't the older version live longer and by that have much lower impact? Life cycle thinking? Or does it all have to be new stuff? So this is really something to think about. Here in this specific indicator or topic, so to say, we look at the use, the recycling, and the disposal, basically, of my products and services. So when I want to start writing my report, or me as a business want to know what is this about, I have to ask first one question. What environmental impacts result from the use and disposal of our products and services by our customers? So even if I provide, let's say, a data service to my customers, that data has to be hosted somewhere, stored somewhere, managed somehow with service and so on. And then the question could be, okay, where's the electricity coming from? And then if they buy devices from you, for whatever, let it be a router or whatever, after the use, that also has to be disposed. So it's important, what kind of materials do I use? And we know, even if it is made from plastic, for example, there's so many different types of plastics. Some can't be reduced or recycled at all. But if we then think of, okay, even if I have to use plastics, can it be a bioplastic? Or can it be a plastic that is then easy to be upcycled or to be repaired or dismantled and used in other recycling processes? So this is something then for me to consider. If my customer gets anything from me, that item maybe has to be disposed. And the usage itself can also maybe be not so optimal. Again, thinking of cell phone, many of us maybe know that cell phones have radiation, and maybe a company that is responsible thinks about the usage of that phone people have, and maybe has at least some kind of advertisement saying, hey, if you use it too much and put it on your ear, that can cause some medical problems. That's at least being more responsible than not saying it. So this manual of the common good also defines then what is the common good company in that area, to have an idea of what has the company to do, or what's the identity of common good company in this area. Represents the ecological life cycle of the products and services regarding use and disposal. That's what we talked about. And represents also means showing it to the customer. For example, when we think of a production company, they show them where's the product coming from and where is it going to, and that would be cradle to grave, the old thinking, linear, and now we want cradle to cradle, which means circular, which means where is it going, and from there, where else can it go, or can it go back into your own production cycle again. Then more, it endeavors to know the ecological effects of use and disposal as precisely as possible and to minimize them, which means we have to start measuring and knowing what we're doing. Then offer products and services whose ecological impact through use and disposal is less than existing alternatives, which means I always have to start to thrive towards being or excelling in sustainability, which means I still have to think competitively in a way, but to be competitive in a sporty way, to be better in ecological terms. And then we have to think of the conditions and use and disposal by customers and tries to influence them in terms of moderate use. So now, for instance, in many countries, they have by law these obligations to, for example, alcohol companies that provide drinks, alcoholic drinks, to have somehow in the advertisement saying, hey, but drink responsibly. That was not their own idea because they were obligated to do so. Because we see in certain areas it's necessary. And thinking of social media, smartphones, and all these kind of things, and thinking of the younger generations, how they abuse, for example, these kind of services. We want to think about, even if we develop an app, what kind of effects does this app, for example, have on my customer? Do I try to sell as much by being mean? Let's say if it makes me really addicted to the game, and I have to pay for every next level I have to go to, and all the extras that are really making the thing fun, or and then I have to keep buying and buying, and it creates addiction. That's not ethical, and these kind of things are also considered. So now if I want to write something, the report, which then could be audited, or if I want to develop some kind of indicator set for myself to be more sustainable, I have to ask myself, what are the environmental impacts of my products? What strategies, that's important, and measures are being employed to reduce the environmental impacts? So I have to ask myself, what am I really doing? And in what ways do I take account of these principles of consistency, efficiency, and sufficiency? Do I really at all think about them? Sufficiency, interesting example. Just recently, a marketing company I'm also collaborating with, they published a white paper, and they were mentioning about less is more in marketing, because when we see, for example, many times we see overloaded pictures, overloaded notions and emotions in marketing, and that can also distort my mind. And then we could also say, okay, less is more, less trying to overwhelm the customer and not trying to manipulate customers. Okay. Just for service providers, you will have the slides later, so you can look it up a bit more in depth. What is this for a service provider? Because here we have to differentiate between my effect on society, and which falls under this D3. We had the poll earlier. We said society is an important stakeholder, then others said customer. And when we think back of the balance sheet, one is area E, which is society, and the other one is D for customer. And sometimes it's not completely clear. And what this manual just gives us as a reference is to think whether it's fixed or variable impacts, and by that we distinguish between the one or the other side. This was for me just for completeness. I don't want to dive into that, but for those that take the slides later with it, know what this is about. Okay, here I have a practical example, but before I will go into the practical example, again, now in the chat or via microphone, if someone has a question, I think now is a good time to ask questions maybe around the balance sheet. Maybe I can go back to the slide of where we see the sheet. If there are any questions on that specific area now of the presentation, now is a good time. Don't be too shy. Questions are fine, and for me also a good way to know if there's something unclear, or if you are curious about something, and hopefully don't find it boring. So important for me to see if there's any questions on this specific part now. Okay, to see that everybody's still there, please, at least in the chat, let me know if I can continue. So I know we are good to go for the next topic. So now we will go a bit into case studies, a bit to visualize. Yeah, thanks. To visualize that theory, if you want to say so, a bit more into how is it translated into real cases. I want to show you yeah, 2 websites actually, and we also can watch one small video. I think maybe we start with the video, because the video really shows it in a really nice way how sustainability can be lived. This is a German company that produces outdoor clothing, and they really apply this balance sheet, and they also have other reporting initiatives, like the global reporting is also another tool to measure sustainability and to write your reports, another standard. And they have a video called the green thread, so like the idea of being green goes through the whole company, and I think this also again visualizes very nicely what is meant by being sustainable. So now I will also turn off my camera to reduce bandwidth a bit, and hopefully the video will perfectly play, but let's see. Now I will pull out the video, and then I hope you guys are able to see it. So give me just a second.
VOD has a vision. We want to contribute to making the world a better place so that future generations will also be able to enjoy the great outdoors.
The vision of VOD is that we want to be a sustainable company through and through. That means that everything that we do in an ecological and social fair way.
This can be seen at the company headquarters in southern Germany. There we are climate neutral, have an organic canteen, and an on-site childcare center. We offer sports classes for our employees and provide motivation to make their commute as eco-friendly as possible. The sustainability theme is a fine green line that runs throughout the entire company. Starting right at the design process, we want to make sure that our products are long-lasting, easy to repair, and can be recycled. And this is where we decide which materials to use. Our goal for every product is manufacturing that's as environmentally friendly as possible so that it meets our strict green shape criteria. We manufacture some of our products at our company headquarters in Germany or in Europe. The majority is made in Asia. Is that a contradiction? No, it's less about where we produce than how we produce.
We work together with Fairware, which is the strictest organization to watch over production conditions. We reached already the leader status there. That means that we have audited more than 90% of all production sites meanwhile, and we have found innovative and new ways of improving the conditions of the workers.
All of our products are transported by means that are as environmentally friendly as possible. The furthest distances are covered by ship and trade. But our sustainability doesn't stop there. It is really important to us that our customers receive expert advice. So we provide training for retail salespeople on topics like sustainability at our Green Shape campus. But the customer has a big influence on the product's eco-balance as well. With the right handling and good maintenance, our products can be used for years. When one day a product has fully served its purpose, we encourage our customers to give it a second life. The road to sustainability is often uncomfortable and presents us with many challenges. Fortunately, we have strong partners at our side who are working with us toward common goals. We have already achieved a lot, but there's still more to do.
What I find really important to show is that it works, that you can make environmentally friendly products, that you can earn money and still be a fair and ecological fair partner.
Okay, yeah, I checked quickly on my phone to see apparently if you could see the video, because it was a bit strange here on my side, the sharing, but I think you were able to see and hear the video. If not, yeah, I recommend highly to go back and watch it. It's really interesting to see what the company called VOD is doing. Yeah, please, quick feedback on the chat if you were able to see the video. And yeah, they already repicked some ideas there. For example, they said they try to make their products as long living as possible and make them easy to repair. They also have, they encourage on their own on eBay, their own upcycling community, where they want to give it a second life also and things like that. So they do really a lot. We saw they do from the production to disposal. So the green thread, like they call it, goes through and through the whole yeah, company and everything they do. They also showed at the headquarters they're climate neutral. They offer organic food in their canteen. They have a kindergarten actually on site, which makes life for many people surely super much easier. And that's something people can think about. Even if you're not producing, you can think of measures for your employees. And when we really start looking at what they're doing, we see obviously they steer their yeah, business around basically the common good balance sheet, or if you want so, they fit in perfectly, and they really use it as a tool to manage the company, also to become better. If you think of Kaizen, you know, the continuous improvement of oneself or of a company, then you can also use the balance sheet to continuously improve your operations, because the good thing is you will get an audit. From that audit, you get a punctuation basically, and And from that, you develop measures and action plan on how to proceed. So you will see how you can keep growing in that particular field. For example, here we have this company, the audit. Unfortunately, the writing is in German, but it doesn't matter because we have seen the sheet earlier in English, and we've seen the topic of D3 in the presentation, and here they got 70%. So that's already showing us they are in the upper third, if you want so. And here you can get in total, you can get 1,000 points. You have to avoid to get negative points, of course. And for each of the indicators or the topics, better said, they get a percentage. Yeah, and within each field, we've seen there's more maybe than one indicator that is covered and things like that. Yeah. So we've seen this one, the ecological impact of my project, product and processes and services, and they got 70%. So one might wonder, okay, how did they get that? Again, I'm sorry, the slide is in German, doesn't matter, I'm going to start translating it for you. This is from the official audit document, and there is no translation, so I wanted to translate for you simultaneously. So they, the audit sheet is interesting. They have a self-evaluation. So you have to first evaluate yourself, then the auditor comes and says yes, no, and then at the end they contrast them a little bit. Interestingly, here they gave themselves 80%, at the end they got 70%. That's also fine, and that's why you see the auditors will tell you if you decide to do an audit how you can get better, and it's a learning process as well. But this is just one of the possibilities how to get certified. I'm not going to detail today, but for you to get an understanding, how do they get to 70%? And they check the status quo, and they say, okay, they have lots of data gathered on all kinds of impact on the environment, which is important. If you just say I'm doing X, Y, Z, and you don't have any studies on your footprint, no calculations on the chemical impact, water impact, and so on, all that is there. So they have production data, they have usage data, and so on. They have clear strategy papers where they show what they're doing, all the products trying to be best in class ecologically wise. Yeah, although the product itself is still a bit problematic. This is what the audit even says, because it's still outdoor clothing, partly made from synthetic fibers. So yeah, that's also showing that of course it has some kind of negative impact, but they're trying to minimize it and make it as circular as possible. When you think about a waterproof jacket, maybe it can't be made from hemp, for example, which is super circular, super sustainable, but maybe when you think of a rainstorm or something, not as convenient as a nice outdoor jacket. So that's why they also get that, of course, honestly tested. But they have plus on repair, they have taken back the materials, and the disposal is also considered. Yeah, and this is really important. And then you see that they have the sustainability is included in their whole product life cycle. We saw the green thread that we earlier saw. They talked about the green shape concept of all the collections they have and so on. They are certified when it comes to reducing chemicals. So they have other certifications showing other aspects of their company. They have ISOs and things like that. And then that all gets evaluated here in the balance sheet. And they have a really strict management system, yeah, which means it's included in the KPIs, it's included in the communication, it's included in the top level management decision making. So it's a key core aspects of their management, and not just the byproduct. Okay, I'm doing my business and I'm still by side, so to say, byproduct wise, do some CSR. No, for them it's key, core, and so on. So this also gets, of course, points. And they also work with other NGOs, for example, that we saw that the Wildlife Foundation or the Fair Wear Foundation, which employs the strictest regulations, for example, on labor conditions and so on. So they have all these things in place, and then they say, okay, I want to get audited to also show the world how well I'm doing. Okay, for the end, to again get everybody's attention a little bit, and to see what you think. We don't have to do that here in the poll. Actually, we can do that just in the chat. Thinking about the life cycle of a smartphone. Maybe we can drop some ideas in the chat now. Thinking about it, what are the stages of a smartphone that it goes through? and maybe we can write a little bit what is critical about it and what not. Feel free to drop whatever comment you feel like. As I always said, there's no stupid answer here. We can do whatever we feel like and keep it open for discussion, because this is something now we can all relate to, and most of us will have a smartphone, and it's worth thinking about the life cycle just for a short moment. Okay, let me just make a start. I say mining, is something to be considering. What else? Maybe associated with mining. Do we have problems associated with mining? Workers. Good answer. Exactly. From many aspects, maybe we can think of the labor conditions, work time, or maybe being even exposed to hazardous substances. We think of chemicals when we think of clothing production. Yeah, there's lots of, or even the age. Yeah, they can be children or working as old persons and still being abused. Yeah, good answers too. Yeah, so there's quite some things associated with the mining of the materials that we need. Then what else? What I mean, the mining is, for example, for the raw materials, but what are smartphones made from? Another thing, plastics. I mean, my smartphone is made, I think, 100% almost from plastic. Chip production, okay. So what is the? Can you think of? Valeri, can you think of some? What can you associate with chip production? Is there any kind of critical process associated with that? I mean, for me, it has the materials in them. Okay. Anything else? But okay, next answer: efficiency versus sufficiency in technology. Good answer, like we had earlier in the presentation too. Can be highly efficient, but then the next question: do we need smartphones all the time? Or always just a new smartphone because now they have another camera with 2 more megapixels, for example, and then I have to get it, or it has 1 more gigabyte storage or whatever. So the craziest reasons were invented to always sell us new phones. Personally, I'm always using old phones secondhand, but of course the secondhand doesn't solve the problem, because for it to be secondhand it had to be firsthand in one place. But using secondhand material is definitely one good way. Okay, so then the usage, when we think of usage of the smartphone, that's another stage of the life cycle. Any ideas what could be problematic with the use of a smartphone during the usage? And now we're going from the production to the consumption stage. So usage, what can be associated during that time of the life cycle of a smartphone? Any kind of problems from this point of view now? Energy, yeah. I saw once a funny post on Facebook. What's the best way to save the battery on your iPhone 4? Put it on the table, turn it off, and have a walk in the forest. It was really funny. So as to say that it just takes up all the energy and you have to constantly use it. And it also goes in line then with, for example, the batteries. What happens to the batteries once they die or they have to be changed out? Exactly, the materials from which the phone is made, perfect, which includes, for instance, the batteries. What happens to the batteries? So good companies maybe encourage you to send in your old phone, also as a way to close the loop a bit. Maybe reuse from the phone what is still reusable, and if not, they could then be saying, I'm the one in charge to dispose it correctly. Because if the company is not then taking responsibility of how to dispose that product, someone will have to. Either it's you as a customer then having to think, okay, where do I bring my old phone if I want to be environmentally friendly? I can't dump it in or I shouldn't just throw it into the trash. And then you maybe find in the internet companies that dedicate themselves to these kind of things, but then you have the cost of sending it to them. I think that's a bit too much to expect from a customer, just to throw away your broken phone, for example. So a good company maybe would offer you a way to print out maybe somehow a ticket that you can put on an envelope and you send it to them, and they are the ones disposing them. And that would be good corporate social responsibility in that respect, for example. Okay. Electricity, okay, another way. And then we were talking about the disposal, last stage. Yeah, of course, toxic materials, plastic that can be recycled, microplastics, and things like that. Okay. I think we are all pretty aware of this. I'm happy about that. Just quick example of a company I like a lot. Haven't got a phone from them yet because I'm still on secondhand phones, and the secondhand phones from fair phones are still a bit overpriced from my point of view. Yet, this is a really cool company. They said, okay, let's be aware of this. And they really try to get everything sustainable. At least they are on the value chain. They go to the mining. They are part of the Sustainable Mining Association and things like that. So Fairphone is really trying to reduce the amount of critical materials to a maximum. They started that years ago. They have now the Fairphone 3, I think, is the current one. So it's not like iPhone 11 or so, where they already have tens of years of experience. They are still a bit younger, but they've been growing a lot. They're from the Netherlands. Check out their website; it's pretty cool. And a bit of the story. They have also good phones. So whenever you consider maybe getting a new phone, why don't you check Fairphone? If you now think about smartphones may be a bit problematic, let's check out what Fairphone is doing, just to get an idea. Yeah, just to round up the whole story, why is it important for us now to think about that? And we were talking about the eco-design life cycle assessment. 2 days ago, as I mentioned, the EU launched the Circular Economy Action Plan from the Green Deal. So it's from the oven hot, so to say, still hot from the oven. And they identified certain sectors, and yeah, electronics and ICT, big topic. So if you're an IT company, this is an area that will get lots of focus, on terms of circularity, because it has a high potential also for circularity, because like I mentioned, the phones maybe have still lots of materials in them that could be used, and there's lots of potential also for us to be more circular. It could be thought of like using more long-lasting materials, or even if you have not the necessity to have always the highest high-end IT, you can also think of second-hand IT. Me, for instance, I've been using second-hand IT from a certain provider in Germany that always took the old business computers from companies when they had to update them every 3 to 4 years, let's say, and then they restored them and they made sure they are really high-end still, and they were second-hand. And they had ThinkPads and Macs and Dell, and that's it. They had only those 3 brands for, I guess, the sturdiest laptops and things like that. So, and that company focused on this circularity principle already 10 or more years ago, and now they expanded. Now they are booming, because this is an interesting topic. We can reduce a lot our IT footprint by going, let's say, just 2 or 3 years in the past and getting secondhand restored material, and it's still high end. Yeah, I mean, it's not always necessary to go first hand. That's one area I wanted to mention. Then they said batteries and vehicles is obviously a big area. Packaging, yeah, necessary, of course. When we send stuff to our customers, we have to also think about, what kind of services do we use? Yeah? And the transport could be important, the packaging, and so on. Plastics, of course, textiles, construction, and food. That's just for you as a little bit as a rounding up of circularity. And this was basically the part of the balance sheet where more the part of circular economy, that is a hot topic at the moment, fits in. But yeah, a little bit of ideas. I mean, we could have, as I said, a whole course on this balance sheet, and then give more specific answers to how you can improve. That's what the consultants, for example, of the Common Good do, of the ECG do. They have a consultant network. So if you are interested in steering your company, and you can get in touch with them, and then they guide you through. So this is a profound change management process. It has to be done professionally, and it takes a while. But if you want to just start and say, okay, I take this balance sheet now, and what can I do? And for that, I also wanted to give you a file. Now you in the download, you should be getting a document soon, which will actually help you in the afterwards. It's called an ECG self-assessment quick test, where you can ask yourself certain questions and write down the numbers, and at the end it gives you an explanation according to your score on that self-assessment, where you are already. You can do that. You can rephrase that all a bit also on a household level if you want to, but you can also do that exercise on a company level. Maybe for those that are here from Byte End afterwards can take this quick test. Although it's the old metrics, it doesn't matter. It's just for you to get a feeling. Form groups and say, let's review what we're doing here and see what we're actually doing, and then see what can we do to get better. It's just an easy thing. So you should be getting the documents now in the chat. The first one is already uploaded. The second one is a presentation from today, so you can get all the slides home. So what can I do? Yeah, you can review your supply chain. Yeah, so where do I buy things? And put maybe criteria for being local, regional, circular, or green, or whatever you want to do. Maybe you can also arrange some kind of decision order. Yeah, I mean, we're all, maybe those that are coming from IT, they know how these things work much better. Yeah, but you have maybe like a algorithm to say, okay, I need to get something. And then you can ask yourself, okay, do I really need it? That's always the first question. So you come up with the answer, yes, I really need this. Okay, and then the second question could be first or second hand. We already had that with the IT. Then you can, okay, it has to be first hand for whatever reasons. Okay, when it's first hand, first I see, can it be done? Can I get it locally from a maybe a sustainable enterprise that is also maybe certified? That could be even your first choice. Yeah, to look for supplies that are fully certified in sustainability. Yeah, when I hosted my website, for example, for me it was key to have a green web hosting. Our website is 100% carbon neutral and invests into growing trees. So for me that was really important, that not just the traffic on the website was offset, but the whole value chain, and they're also an ECG company. So my choice for that specific website host was taken because they are an ECG company. For me, that was more than the standard of being a green host company. Oh, that is already quite innovative, but go even a step further and say, we as a company don't just want to offer green products, we want to be through and through sustainable, for instance. So review your supply chain. That's basically an own exercise. It could be a whole workshop just on reviewing your supply chain, and this is basically one of the most intense works when you work together maybe with a consultant, to go through your supplies and your criteria, and then develop a strategy on how to be better on the supply chain. That's funny actually, that in the poll we had earlier, suppliers ranked last. Yeah, but from a sustainability point of view, suppliers are the most important, maybe. Yeah, because you can have the biggest impact through supply chain management. You can have a high impact just by changing certain things in your supply chain. As for instance, that's the next step here, the second one, change electricity to a 100% green electricity company. This can be done pretty easy, depending on the country. Maybe it's a bit more difficult, but in Europe, for instance, the market was liberalized and it's much better regulated in some ways for the customer. So you can change to a company pretty easy. And nowadays, there's lots of companies offering 100% green. And then you can even go a step further and say, okay, I want it to be green and maybe a democratic company, if you want even to go further to demonopolize the energy market. That's for me one of the things I care about a lot. Review your ICT equipment. We saw that it's also a key area in the EU agenda. Has high potential in circularity. We talked about it too. Think about secondhand, think about long lasting and easy to repair, for example. Another thing, change to an ethical bank. I don't have this link on here, I forgot about it, but you can look Fair Finance Guide, and this is a worldwide website where you can look. Not every country is listed, unfortunately, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be so bad. But it's also good to think about it. So check for ethical banking. Look at Fair Finance Guide. Maybe one of the banks that are in your country are there. We are with Triodos. It's also an ethical bank from the Netherlands, but they have already their subsidiary companies in different countries. So they don't invest in war, in weapons, in genetical engineering, all these kind of things, which I consider unethical. They don't do. So I know when I put my money on the bank and when customers pay me as a company, I contribute to a better world. And that's just as easy by having a current account at an ethical bank. Just by that, you are already doing better. So easy thing to do again, open a bank account maybe at one of those banks. Because in the end, it's if you also keen in online banking, your bank doesn't have to be in the country you're living at. So for example, Triodos offers online banking and you can have online accounts. So that's something to look into too. Another thing, and that's whether you're a service provider or whether you are a production company that has their own canteen or whatever, you can help to provide organic and local food. And if you want to go even a step further than that, look for local ecological food baskets. There's certain farms, low scale, small scale often, that put up these little baskets of fruits and vegetables every week with regional and organic fruits and vegetables. And you can even, as an employee, think, hey, I provide at least, let's say, a basket of organic apples to my employees every week. And by that, boost immune system, something really important we know about now, even more than in other times. And when it's organic, you even most likely support local farmers with fair prices and not big corporations like Monsanto or others that are even doing worse things that we even don't want to talk about. And it also shown that the food agriculture industry is one of the biggest carbon polluters, but also a big problem when it comes to chemicals. Lots of problems associated with health risk. If you don't eat organic food, you risking jeopardizing your health. When you think of a tomato that is not organic, 48 different substances are found in the peel and inside of the tomato. And I'm asking, okay, I just want a tomato. And then they have all these other stuff on it. Or you go to a supermarket and on the oranges they put wax or other stuff. Or the watermelons are injected with sugar. All these kind of things we don't need. We don't need that kind of food. We need real food, and we also want to maybe contribute to a local empowerment of local farmers, and all these kind of things are super important. And when you go maybe to a local food supplier, you can also avoid packaging. I don't know if you have the same impression, but if you go to a supermarket, everything is packed in plastic. But if you buy things locally, many times you can even, like back in the days, you bring your own packaging and you don't have any new trash that is generated. So for me personally, the hardest challenge in life is to produce less trash. And this is another way how you can reduce trash in a really big amount. And then if you want to go a step further, like I already suggested, I already uploaded the documents. Both are up now. You can make a self-assessment of the balance sheet for yourself to get a little feeling. If you want to then get in touch with us and know more about it, we have things to help you, and we can also guide you where you can get other help. And if you want to be getting involved actively in the ECG movement I showed you earlier, you just go to the website and see what's locally going on at your place. And that's something I encourage everybody who is not already in the movement to do so. And for those that have been insisting today, we invite you to sign up for the online exam about this topic we did today. Good balance sheet and corporate social responsibility. It will be a bit going through the presentation topics, little questions online, and then with that you can get a certificate and actually help us contribute to planting trees. Then because where we live, we have also little tree nursery, so with the courses we give and the little webinars, and then if you take the exams afterwards and want to get the certificates, all these little things help us to keep planting trees and contributing also to stop a bit climate change. That's our mission, and so that's why we would like to invite you also to sign up to our newsletter if you want to get updates on webinars and other things we do. Like I said, if you're interested in getting this webinar from today in a way certified, showing that you have a bit of more knowledge on common good and sustainability, and for me also, it's always a good way to build my resume. So if whoever is interested in getting a certificate, just get in contact with us. And with that, like I said, you contribute into planting trees. So you will also get a tree certificate, and maybe something you like. I like these kind of things. Check out our courses if you want to become more an expert in sustainability. And if you want, spread the word. Leave us a review on Facebook, would help out a lot. So if you liked, then recommend us or come to another webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So now it's also more time for questions and answers if you want to. If not, I just say thank you for your attention, and yeah, stay healthy, and hopefully see you all soon again. That's my last thing I have to say for now. You're welcome. So, and if you have questions afterwards, just write me an email, get in touch, and like I said, we have more webinars coming up. Another one will be also on the common good and the more green IT. We will have a guest, probably Green Web Space. They are our host for the website also, and we want to invite them to a webinar too, so they can present a bit what they're doing. That's one of the next ones. We will have ones on circular economy coming up. We have 2 companies already that are signed up, and they will show in 2 different webinars what they do. One is an outdoor company, and the other one is also a production company. We will have a couple of series going on. So if you enjoy these kind of events, please sign up again and see you here. Otherwise, have a nice weekend and stay safe, most importantly.